We're going to be going over a special topic presentation by Sarah Favreau, who is with the Department of Public Works. And then we're going to be spending some time doing breakout rooms to hear all of your responses and anything you have about feedback about the project itself or the topic we're going over today. After that, we'll return back together and we'll have closing thoughts and just to return back together to give you a few more resources about the project. So just overall, the project itself is called the Regional Water Equity Effort. In September of last year, our Board of Supervisors directed us to take this approach to find more and effective drought management and sustainability practices region-wide. This is a binational perspective as well as exploring best practices in Imperial County as well. So overall, this is a very holistic approach to try to find best practices throughout our region and with our neighbors. We're also very interested in finding out what water equity means to all our different communities. So this is a little scope right here of what the map looks like of what we're studying from the perspective of the technical report that will be produced at the end of this project. That'll be including the San Diego County region itself. And as I mentioned earlier, we're exploring what water equity means to folks, and that's what we're exploring more in the Imperial County areas and also the border communities. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our special speaker today, Sarah Favreau, who is an environmental planner with the Watershed Protection Program of DPW. And we're really excited to have her speak to us today about stormwater collection. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Elise. Just 1 second, I'll get my screen to share. Okay, looks like it's sharing. In 1 second, I'll get started. So, hi, I'm Sarah Favreau. I'm an environmental planner with the Watershed Protection Program. I've been with the county for almost 6 years now, and I've mostly focused on improving water quality by educating the community on stormwater pollution prevention best practices. Recently, though, I transitioned into a new role that focuses on the impacts of climate change on our stormwater infrastructure and how we can make our communities more resilient to extreme weather events and flooding. So today's topic on stormwater collection is perfectly aligned with these focus areas, and I hope to show you how stormwater collection can benefit you and the environment. So here's a little preview of the presentation. First, I'll go over what exactly stormwater runoff is. Then I'll discuss the benefits of capturing the stormwater for the environment in your home. Then I'll go into how you can collect stormwater in your landscape and containers. Lastly, I'll introduce you to the county's Waterscape Rebate Program, which offers financial and technical assistance to participants in the unincorporated areas to upgrade your properties with stormwater collection projects. And at the very end, I'll leave you with the program and contact information for both the Watershed Protection Program and the Waterscape Rebate Program. So what is stormwater runoff? Well, according to the California State Water Resources Control Board, stormwater runoff is generated from rain and snowmelt events that flow over land or impervious surfaces, such as paved streets, parking lots, and building rooftops. This graphic here that I'm borrowing from Caltrans helps to illustrate this definition. And as you can see, the rain falls onto your roof, flows to your gutters if you have them, and then out the downspout. Then depending on how your downspout is configured, it could be plumbed directly to a pipe that drains to the street, or the stormwater could flow from the downspout to your lawn or driveway where it eventually runs off into the street. Then the stormwater flows to storm drain inlets in the street and eventually discharges out a storm drain outlet and into a water body like a creek or a river, which all eventually lead to the ocean. And in San Diego, water in the storm drain does not get treated. So as stormwater runoff from our roofs and streets flows through the streets, it picks up pollutants, including oils from cars, bacteria, and pesticides. And then all those pollutants go directly to the ocean. So you may have heard that it's not a good idea to go swimming in the ocean after it rains. And this is because these pollutants are being flushed into the waterways. In fact, if water testing detects contaminant levels that exceed health standards, it can actually result in a beach closure. So by capturing stormwater runoff before it goes to the streets, You are capturing it before it picks up any of the pollutants that are in the streets and storm drain. And I've already alluded to some of the benefits of capturing stormwater on the previous slide, but there are additional benefits to the environment that I'd like to highlight. Again, by keeping stormwater on site, we are reducing the amount of pollutants being transported to our waterways and beaches. When we install new impervious surfaces like roofs, patios, and roads, we remove the ground's natural ability to infiltrate stormwater into the soil. And this infiltration is good for the soil and helps refill groundwater reserves. Also, collecting stormwater and using it for activities that you would otherwise use tap water for reduces the energy and carbon emissions that come from transporting water from other parts of California to our homes. And then lastly, as stormwater picks up pollutants and dirt in our streets, it can cause erosion and sediment deposits, which damage our roads, lead to costly repairs, and impair our waterways. So collecting stormwater not only benefits the environment, but also you and your home.
I got on.
If you capture enough stormwater, you can reduce the water from the tap that you would normally use to irrigate your plants in spring and summer when we have less rain, which in turn will save you money on your water bill, which is important as water rates are projected to rise again over the next couple of years. And rainwater is also better for your plants because it's free of the salts and minerals that are found in tap water, like calcium and magnesium. And these salts and minerals can build up in your soil over time, and these residues are tough on plants. So watering with harvested rainwater can help flush these buildups during the dry season. And then lastly, rainwater isn't just for outdoor use. You can fill up a watering can with your harvested rainwater and water your indoor plants too. So if you weren't already on board, hopefully I've convinced you that stormwater collection is great and you'd like to learn more about how you can collect stormwater at home. So the first way is to take advantage of stormwater in your landscape, either by installing rain gardens or by simply redirecting your downspout to a yard area. Rain gardens are specifically designated areas in your yard that are designed to hold and infiltrate rainwater. Rain gardens include dry creek beds, vegetated swales, and rock gardens. But if you decide to redirect a downspout directly into a lawn or landscaped area instead, you want to make sure that the area is at least half the size of the area it is capturing water from to reduce the risk of flooding. So for example, if the downspout drains a 500 square foot portion of your roof, then the yard area where it's draining to needs to be at least 250 square feet. Perhaps the most popular way to collect stormwater is to capture it in a container in either a rain barrel or a cistern, which is essentially a bigger rain barrel. And this enables you to store rainwater in the wet season and save it to use in the summer and drier months when we have less rain. So in order to collect stormwater, you will need to install a rain chain as pictured with the rain barrel on the left of your screen, or redirect an existing downspout to the container of your choice. Many container models have the ability to daisy chain multiple containers together. Otherwise, it's very important to connect or install an overflow mechanism and redirect any excess water away from your home, preferably to a landscaped area or rain garden, to reduce flooding potential. So how much rainwater can you capture? The short answer is a lot. For example, a small home with a 1,000 square foot roof can capture about 500 gallons in a single storm. Plus, rain barrels will fill up quickly. So on big roofs, you can expect a 50-gallon barrel to fill up within 5 minutes of a big storm. So if you have the space, it's worth it to consider upsizing from a rain barrel to a cistern so you can collect as much as possible. Plus, if your system is oversized, you won't need to use the water in your container between storms in order to free up capacity for the next storm. And this is particularly helpful when we have storms that are back to back, as we did earlier this year when we had those atmospheric rivers. Also, if you live in the unincorporated areas of the county, you are eligible to participate in the county's Waterscape Rebate Program, which offers financial and technical assistance to install projects that improve water quality and conserve water at the same time. This program offers financial assistance in the form of rebates for projects such as turf removal, septic system pumping, permeable pavement, and rain saving rebates, which I'll focus on today. Residents can receive up to $2,100 and commercial properties can receive up to $6,000 to install gutters, rain gardens, rainwater harvesting containers, and redirect downspouts so water flows onto pervious areas instead of the storm drain. The program also offers technical assistance to participants by calculating the roof area and stormwater runoff that a project could capture so they can make a more informed decision about how much storage they would like to install. And if a participant is interested in a rain garden, the program also provides basic design assistance to help participants determine the depth and type of materials needed for an effective system. And lastly, if a project is in an area serviced by a member agency of the San Diego County Water Authority, a program representative can help you apply for additional rebates offered through the SoCal Water Smart program and their online portal. So although we had significant rains this season and many of our reservoirs are filling up, California is still in a drought. One of our important sources of water is the Colorado River, which has not been impacted by the recent rains and is still facing drought conditions. Californians should continue to act as if drought is an ongoing reality and prepare for future years of drought. By collecting stormwater, you are helping California become more resilient to drought and conserve more water for the future. So thank you for joining us today and learning about stormwater collection. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them during the breakout session or direct you to the best person that can help. I've also included the general contact information for the Watershed Protection Program and Waterscape Rebate Program in case you think of anything later and would like to reach out directly with your questions. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was really insightful. Really appreciate that. And as I'm taking it back here, I want to bring us all together to let you know that this is the next segment that you're all excited to join us for, which is for the breakout rooms. And we'll be spending the majority of the time in these breakout rooms having a discussion. We really do want to hear from you about what Sarah went over, the project itself. If you have any feedback or experiences you'd like to share with us. We will be using a digital whiteboard. So that means that we will be taking notes and putting them on sticky notes on a whiteboard to capture your responses. You will be able to either let us know, the OSEJ staff, what your thoughts are, and we can write them down for you, or you're welcome to use the program and write your notes on the sticky notes. But what we're going to do now is break out into the rooms and we'll introduce you to the OSEJ staff and we'll get started. All right, welcome back to the main room, everyone. Thank you again. We're going to do a little bit of a revamp here. So we're just going to bring the whole group together so we can discuss as a group. So if I could have one of my team members volunteer to share their screen and do what we were doing in the breakout room. So let's go with room 2, if you don't mind. And we'll get our setup here. Thank you for your patience. So room 2, folks, from OSEJ staff, if you could share your screen, and then we'll continue to take down notes.
Take some time for us to come back.
All right, welcome back. As we're all trickling in, we're bringing you back here just to try a new approach where we're going to bring the whole group together and do the same approach where we're taking down notes and using the sticky virtual notes, but we're going to do it as a team overall. So my OSEJ staff from breakout room 2, I believe, would you mind sharing your screen? And we can pick up where you left off.
Sure. Yeah, we would love to keep going. So we were just chatting about question number 2 about the challenges that would be there for successfully. And just, I think we had a lot of questions about what kind of systems you could put in different kind of apartments and then how also to deal with HOAs, how to communicate that effectively too. We don't mean to put you on the spot, Sarah Favreau, but if you have any, we had a couple of questions if you wanted to maybe chime in we could scroll to that question that we were going to ask for you, and then we could go back to the questions.
Oh, yeah, no. Let me know and I'll see
Okay,
what
so just in the general experience of working with HOAs, how does installing stormwater capture and that kind of the barrels and the cisterns, what would be the best advice that you could give for that?
So we actually have what's called the landscape optimization service, and it targets HOAs and larger properties with larger amounts of turf that can be removed. And we help them design and pay for the design and for the removal, like portions, and to participate also in the SoCal Water Smart program, so that we kind of like stack incentives to get like as much possible to like pay for this project. And part of that application process requires a stormwater retention feature. So we kind of try and sell the storage with the turf removal, because they really want to get rid of the turf removal to not spend as much on their irrigation, which is a huge budget for HOAs. And oftentimes HOAs have very tight budgets. So anywhere they can save, they're all ears. So I think having that stacking of incentives and using the requirements of that program, which requires that feature, to have them consider cisterns and rain barrels has been the most effective way. Oftentimes, yeah, they'll either do a cistern or they will do an actual stormwater feature, like a rock garden or a rain garden. But cisterns are becoming much more popular if they have the space. Does that help answer? I think experience working with HOAs in order to capture stormwater that is permissible. And the one thing I would highlight, check with your zoning ordinances. We did find if a cistern is over 5,000 gallons, it may need additional permitting. So it's something to keep in mind, because we have had some projects that wanted to really go big on their cisterns, which we love, but we needed to make sure that they were within zoning regulations. So there's something to keep in the back of your head.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, and as we're all kind of catching up with these great questions we have going on and the great responses, I just wanted to share with everyone again the link to utilize this program we're using. So if you want to type in your own responses at any time, you can utilize that with this link we just dropped in, just to refresh in case anything was erased in the breakout rooms. And we're also here, OSEJ staff, to take down your notes. So we just want to continue talking and collaborating. We also had a great conversation with Katie in our other room. So we're about on the same page here. And also, if there are any questions related to the project itself, I'm the project manager, happy to be a resource. But I'll let you guys pick back up on the sticky note process.
Yeah, I guess we can finish up on that question that we were on before about based upon what type of building you live in. Does anybody else have any questions or any items that they wanted to finish their thoughts on before we move on to maybe the next question?
I guess one of my questions related to that would be how that works in more urban environments, like living in lower income communities, more urban environments, or more renter owned areas, as opposed to owning your own condo or things like that.
Yeah, that's a wonderful theme. That's definitely a space that we're looking into in this report, and something that we're trying to capture. So I appreciate that.
And I'll just volunteer. I don't know when the next workshop is, but we are making an effort to target disadvantaged communities to make sure that, rebates are often given after the fact, after we already put up the money and paid, and we understand that can be a barrier. So we're working to get just free rain barrels out if you attend a public workshop. So that's one way we are trying to help the underserved communities with the stormwater capture.
Thanks for sharing those two things. So we can move on to the next question, I think now, of have you ever tried to collect stormwater at your current place of residence, and what did you use it for? And then we could start off with Sarah, maybe if you wanted to share a couple instances of best cases that you've heard of, or things that you'd like to share with the group to maybe get our brains thinking about that?
Maybe not particular projects that come to mind right away, but in general, we've noticed it's not like we're trying to like hard sell rain barrels or cisterns, but when we do work with the individuals, like and help them like design their system, really calculate the square footage of their roof and how much like potential they really have to save. People like realize like how much they could be saving, and so oftentimes they'll submit an interest form saying like, oh, I'm interested in rain barrels. And we're fine with that if that's what we'd like to stick with. But we do walk you through and show you how much you could save. And oftentimes in the unincorporated areas, especially in more rural communities, there is more maybe land area, and they do have the ability to have cisterns. And so we have seen people kind of convert in a sense from rain barrels to cisterns because it kind of like just made sense in the numbers and they had the space. So I'd say that's a trend we're starting to see a bigger uptick in cistern installations as opposed to rain barrels. And we had, I think if there was a rain barrel project, but we had a participant out in Fallbrook who was really excited with the program, like loved how it worked out. She did a bunch of our offerings since we have, more than just rain saving rebates. And she, I think, posted it on Facebook, and we got like a bunch more people interested. So we really have loved the kind of like word of mouth, the positive feedback that we're getting. So it seems like people are really interested in it. So we're happy to help where we can.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. Does the rest of the group, does anybody have any thoughts on this question?
And maybe it's just my screen, but there's like a text box that's kind of covering part of the question. Yeah, there. So have you tried question at your place of residence?
And then maybe while everybody's thinking, I'll put you back on the spot, Sarah. If you could maybe tell us a little bit about what a cistern is and define those kind of terms for us.
Yeah, so we use it in terms of, like I think I said in the presentation, like a cistern is essentially just a bigger rain barrel. So in terms of the rebate actual process, they consider a rain barrel to be like up to 199 gallons. And then once you go over to 200 gallons, you're entering cistern territory. And that means you can get more rebates through the SoCal Water Smart program and through us, like with the more water that you save. So really the definition is just about the gallon capacity, the saving capacities for the cisterns. Typically, we're seeing rain barrel sizes, like 50 gallon is like a pretty standard rain barrel size. And I wrote it down, but oftentimes the next question is like, how much do these cost? And I can kind of tell you right now in general, some cost numbers if people are interested in that. So yeah, rain barrels are typically running about $140, $200, and cisterns that are about 500 to 750 gallons are about $700 to $1,000. To give people an idea of how much it would cost without rebates, without financial assistance.
Great, that's really helpful.
And I can give some feedback on this one, just to get some ideas going. I live in a condo on the top floor, and I really tried to utilize stormwater capture as best as I could. And what did that look like for me? Because I appreciate that comment about how do we identify options and resources for stormwater collection in a place where you may not have a lot of storage capacity, or you live in a condo. And I tried to put out rain buckets overhanging my my balcony area that my HOA would allow. And I would capture the stormwater over a few days, and it actually yielded a pretty good amount. I got about a half gallon to 3/4 of a gallon some days, but that was over a course of about a week. but this is an open container. I would use it to water my plants. I would use it to water plants outside. And as great as the idea was, it was just kind of an experiment for me, because I'm sure that we all can feel that when we're capturing stormwater, it just rained. And if you use that water again, the plants don't necessarily need it right away. But in my case, I used it for my indoor plants, and it was really helpful. So it was just kind of like a nice way to conserve water for a week for my indoor plants. So I don't know if anyone might have any experiences like that, if you have indoor potted plants or patio plants, and if you have any experiments you want to share.
I guess semi-similar, but instead of directly collecting the rain, I make sure to put all of my houseplants outside when it's raining to water them without having to use tap water.
Yeah, I've done something similar where I have plants hanging on my porch, but they're underneath an overhang. So when it's raining, I'll take them out and put them in my yard so they can get the rainwater.
Great. Thanks for those two stories. That's great. Well, I think we could maybe move to the last question, which I can do a little intro for. So this effort is to bring together a comprehensive regional strategies to address drought impacts, and then to also ensure that equity is at the center of what we're doing. So we wanted to hear from the attendees here exactly of what water equity means to you. Feel free to say it in the chat or add it to the board directly, or come off mute and raise your hand. But we'd love to hear from you for this question.
I think for me, from like a residential perspective, the idea of water equity would mean that all people of all backgrounds have access to clean, safe drinking water, and also when possible, like clean recreation water at a rate in which they can afford for the drinking water. So clean, affordable drinking water, and then like access to like a clean recreation water when they're like within close proximity to that.
Thank you. We could move on if anybody else has a theme that they'd like to share, or anything that comes to mind whenever we share the word water equity. At our prior event that we've done a word cloud where everybody was able to chime in real time with just quick phrases or words that came to mind, which, like you were saying, clean, access, stuff like that too. So if anything like that comes to mind that you'd like to share as well, we can do quick words or phrases if it's easier.
Can I add that water equity, not just in terms of, having access to water, but water equity to me also means having access to these programs, right? So in the more affluent neighborhoods, I work for the city of Escondido, and we're trying to promote water, the rebates. And it's the more affluent neighbors that know about the rebates, and not the lower income neighbors, right? Or in the neighborhoods where internet may not be necessarily in the home. So water equity means to me those communities that may not easily get access to the knowledge about these rebates or knowledge about water access, them having access too. Does that make sense? That was like a really big roundabout.
That was wonderful. That was great.
Okay.
You echoed a lot of thoughts that we have in internal conversations about outreach for this
Okay.
project or other projects we do. So I really appreciate those comments. Yeah, that's definitely something that we as municipalities all kind of are internally trying to figure out, is how to reach out to those people. Yeah, Christina, please jump in.
So I'm not really sure if this is the right space to add it, but I think responsible use might also be something that we think about when we think about water equity, because I think there's not just the distribution over our geography that is important, but also over time. So, how are we drawing upon our water resources in a way that is sustainable over the long term, as well as over, the space that we want to cover here and now?
Wonderful. Yeah, that fits right in with themes. Well, does anybody else have any themes that come to mind maybe, or we could jump back to questions maybe for the presenter before we wrapped up.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yeah, please.
And it kind of piggybacks with the outreach education and responsible use. It's like water equity means changing that frame of, well, can't I just pay for it? Have you heard that before? Like somebody who has this huge, massive lawn and they want to keep their lawn. They don't want to change their landscaping, and I'll pay whatever it costs. I have the money, I'm affluent enough, can't I just pay for it? And so changing that frame of mind from, well, I can just afford to pay more, to, oh, I can afford to do more.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I think we've also talked sometimes about, well, oh, we're not in a drought now, but we are. and I think I've been thinking a lot about, like, how are we thinking about future years where we have expectations of drought becoming intensified? So what is the right amount of usage? And do we think about storage now in a year that looks good, and capping our usage at some point, that is reasonable, like you say, Marielle, like, does everybody have the right to just like, oh, I can buy it, therefore I get to use it and I can consume it this year, in this time and space when it is plentiful, but that actually is taking away opportunity to make it more plentiful to more people in future years.
Just want to say how this feedback is really helpful, and want to mention that this is a great opportunity for us to talk with you, our communities, to understand what all the different experiences with this term might mean for you. This is something we're exploring throughout this project, so this is very helpful. And it's also one thing I'd like to mention, that there's no official term for water equity. So anything you want to give us, you help us defining it right now. So it doesn't have to be limited to just about water rates or water quality. Like, this could mean anything to you, what your experiences are, has to do with recreation, or maybe like coastal experiences, anything like that. I just want to make sure everyone knows this is up to you, what this word means to you. So with that, does anyone have any other ideas or anything come to mind?
Yeah, this is Katie. So the term environmental justice always has an access, like a participation aspect to the definition. And we kind of touched on that, and like folks should be, environmental justice communities should be engaged and educated. But I think too that there's the opposite of that, is that like the governing agencies should be educated by folks in the environmental justice communities about like what they want, what they need. So access to the conversation goes both ways.
That's great. I think that's really helpful to hear that perspective as well. That there's a different side to each of the words we're using and the experiences to that. So it can be very broad. Thank you for that. Anyone else from the group interested in sharing maybe some of their experiences of what water equity might mean or help define this term? If you were to put pen to paper and want to do a quick blurb, this can be an overall thought or just a quick 2 to 3 word response. It can be a variety of how you think about this.
I think a little bit of a different approach to it that always comes to mind is also the environmental impact in terms of getting water from the Colorado River and drought and things like that. Like there's obviously a massive human focus, but having those environmental impacts in mind as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a great one.
This is like tangentially related. Has anybody listened to the podcast Rich White Parents? So it's about a teacher. Sorry, Katie. It's about a school in New York that was predominantly for people of color, and then it started becoming like a sought after school for students to go to, and then the wealthy people started coming in, and they were predominantly white wealthy people, and they were wanting to do a bunch of like fundraiser stuff, and they kind of swept in and kind of had this white saviorism going on, leaving all of the communities that were originally served by the school kind of in the dust. And it was a very like mutually exclusive kind of experience for both the rich white families and then the people of color families that were in the district that could go to that school. So when I think about water equity, I think about don't be that rich white parent. But I guess like that's kind of it's don't have that saviorism. It's like, how do you engage communities from it's like the communities are engaging with themselves and then reaching out of what they need, right? That engagement comes from their needs, not from what we think they need. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that makes a lot of sense. You highlighted it really well with that last cap off of understanding what does that perspective for someone else? How do we meet what other folks need at that time? Yeah. So perspective, that's a huge thing. I like that theme here. That's something that's actually resonating with me right now. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
I agree. I think that's very much like international development has that same, like let your the stakeholders, right, should be the ones that are determining what the needs are. I think we also had a conversation just a little bit ago, right, about like, well, who understands the issue or who has access to information? So making sure that access to information exists and that everyone is well informed is a precursor that I think that we have to that is another important goal. And then to say, okay, now you tell us, what is best from your perspective. But without that precursor, you could leave people in some disadvantaged state as well. But I think you brought up both of those, Marielle. So.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Yeah, I really like that. That's very insightful. I know we had Katie's hand up. Sorry, I didn't mean to overlook. Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. This one might be a little in the weeds, but for anyone who's a stormwater professional, a a recent conference from the Industrial Environmental Association, something was brought up that definitely has an equity standpoint. So if you're in an industrial facility and you have to apply for an industrial general permit, you're responsible for managing your stormwater and keeping it clean. And let's say you're a new company that is a manufacturing company, and you have the option to pick between two different watersheds. And one of those watersheds is more polluted, it's in an environmental justice community, and the other one's more affluent. This cost associated with managing your stormwater and cleaning it in the more polluted community is going to be more. So you'll actually see industries and companies deciding to create their businesses in communities with less pollution because it's going to cost them less. So that's a huge, big conundrum that I don't have a solution for, but it is an interesting equity issue that communities that need development aren't seeing the development because there's environmental regulations that are more costly for them to operate there.
That's really insightful as well. And we appreciate that technical background. Like that's something that is a new perspective for a lot of us, like water users. Everyone uses water, right? And I think that hearing your kind of background on an experience like that is helpful for all of us as a group and also for the report itself. So thank you. Really appreciate that perspective.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. This has been great. Really appreciate this. We're hearing so many different options. I love seeing the number 5. It used to be a blank template and now it's just being populated with really great comments. So your voices are really, really just so valuable for this. So thank you. Can't say it enough. And what's also really helpful with these conversations, just want to let you know, what are we doing with this? What's going to happen next? And I can start going into that once we close out here. But I do just want to let you all know that the meaningful responses and the engagement we have with you all today is a part of the overall project, and it helps us inform the deliverable itself. So you'll be a part of that process by having your voices heard. But before we do start transitioning into more of a closing statement, I'll give you some more information about the project and next steps. Were there any other comments, any other feedback folks had about what water equity means to them?
No, but I did have one question for the presenter, Sarah. What do you do when somebody finds it either difficult to find information about this program, or they question whether the program is real?
So for whether the program is real, I'll start with that, because when we were first developing, because this is still considered a pilot program, we did take into consideration people's views of the county, of government, and distrust. I think it's out there. And so we take that issue very seriously to heart. We do have consultants that are who do more of the one-on-one work with the participants, and we're kind of more like the funding and the structure, and we're setting up the guidelines. And we have seen that people tend to like that it's not the county coming out and reaching out to them directly with the big county seal. It's kind of like an intermediary. And also to reinforce that trust and that this is a valid program, we above all like customer support, like getting back to people right away. We don't and if we can't get back to you right away, we have an automatic response saying we will get back to you in so many hours and so many days. So really making sure that people know emails are being looked at, they're being responded to. I think like that's number one, is like truly is customer service, customer support. And that's where probably most of our program costs go, but we feel it's absolutely necessary to have a successful program, is to make people trust that they're going to get that rebate check after they do all this work. And then I'm sorry, the first part of your question was
Like navigating the internet to find the program
Yeah, so we did hire some, I think there were a sub-consultant that did, like, we kind of did like marketing, what is it called? Community-based social marketing. And we have like a website. We made sure we have, I think, like a shorter URL. Like oftentimes, I think by default, some of our county URLs are really, really long. So we tried to get them as like short as possible. We tried to like standardize our email name, things like that, just to try and make it as simple. Like when you do a keyword search for waterscape, that hopefully if you're coming to our page, like if you did like Waterscape San Diego, hopefully it would take you to the county. Because before our program existed, if you did, rebate San Diego, I mean, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to go to the city. But now as we're getting more hits, I think our program is really starting to stand out a lot more. So it is that, I mean, I'm not the best here, but like that website development, keyword, all that stuff. I mean, getting someone who really knows how to do that and utilizing the correct social media platforms. And also, I mentioned those Rain Barrel workshops for the underserved communities, partnering with community-based organizations that are in that community. So then they also have kind of that trust because they already are a familiar group. So partnering with them to get the word out. And we're discussing, well, yeah, we've also toyed around with the idea of maybe having them help with like installation. We're not quite there yet, but we know that that's another barrier. And any way that we can involve the community, like have this community focused, community developed response and action is definitely what we're trying to do.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Yeah, really appreciate that. And if you don't mind, if you could drop your email in the chat, because we have been providing a few helpful links here in the chat, just to give you some more ideas of how to stay in touch with us, some resources that you can take home today. If you do have any questions for Sarah about the rebate program or myself about the regional water equity effort, we're happy to be a resource. But I'm going to go ahead and start closing us out. Just want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we're a little bit over here, but just want to share with all of you, we really appreciate your time today overall. And the next thing that you can expect is, of course, over the next summer until September, a few months, we're going to be doing continuous deep dives. So we'll have a few different topics. We've put the flyer in the chat for you as well, so you can continue to learn about the different topics within this project. We will be having a closing water event as well. So that'll be the water assembly in September. And what that's leading to is the overall draft report, which we are very excited to share with the public because we want to hear your feedback and we want to hear about your public comment during that time. So this will all lead back to the board in winter of 2024, early January around that time. So just keep an eye out. We also have the website posted here in the chat. Again, my name is Elise Ruiz. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you to the whole team for being here tonight and for all of you sharing your dinner time with us. Hope you have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the summer, but go have a great dinner. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you. Great. Thank you all so much.